In today's video, Demi Lovato sounds like a progressive Christian in her recent sex post.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name might be Isaiah, and today is Sunday. As you can tell from the cold open, I'm reacting to a Paul and Morgan video. Well, partially. I am using their video as a sort of jumping off point to discuss issues that I have with Christianity in general. And this video is about a month old and discusses Demi Lovato and progressive Christianity. And I thought it would make a fantastic jumping off point, as well as a fantastic way to call them out. I have left a couple of clips in here for clarification on their beliefs, but I also am putting these clips in a different order just to try and keep myself on track. I will link their video below so you can make sure I'm not taking them out of context if you so wish. So without much further ado, let's get into it.
So guys, recently Demi Lovato went a step further than really anything I've seen. Her saying, "Call me they, them," that was a lot.
So that clip was just showing that they're going to misgender Demi Lovato throughout this entire thing. I thought about clipping together all the times they misgendered them, but that got really tiring really quickly, so I refused to do that. Let's go on to the next clip.
And we made a video on that. But it's like she's gone a step further into this post that she shared on her Instagram story. And I'm going to read it here in just a second. But it's like, what did you think when I showed it to you?
I thought that there's just a serious spirit of darkness and perversion across our world right now. Maybe it's always been there. I don't think that it has been as severe as it is right now.
So let's keep in mind what Morgan just said when I play the next clip.
1 Corinthians 7:2-3. But since sexual immorality is occurring, each man should have sexual relations with his own wife, and each woman with her own husband. The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband.
So, if times are darker than they ever have been before, why is Paul having to tell the early church to stop fucking outside of marriage? I mean, the times have been darker than never before is a constant in Christianity. I remember it because, I started attending church around 2001. I attended until 2011. We all remembered what happened in 2001, right? The Twin Tower attacks. And then 2011 is after the housing bubble burst. So, and Obama came into power. Like, come on. Also, the next clip I just think is ironic because Paul and Morgan spend the entire video, except for like every time that they're shitting on neo-pronouns or Demi Lovato going by they, them, shitting on progressive Christianity, and yet he said this.
But sadly, and I'm not going to claim to know exactly what a progressive Christian, there's obviously a spectrum there.
Yeah. So you don't really know what progressive Christianities and progressive Christians believe, but you're going to spend like 20 minutes complaining about them. Sure, Jan. But thankfully, Paul and Morgan actually read Demi Lovato's post out loud, and for context's sake, I'm going to let him read it in his own fun and special way.
So she posted this on her Instagram. She shared it from, I guess, a podcaster, Vass J. Morgan. Be SLUT. Show your body. Get naked. Have all the safe, different, consensual sex you want. Be kinky. Masturbate. Make/watch porn. Make money. Just a reminder that being sexual is okay. There you go.
Always fun. Always so much fun.
Yeah, I think that it's important to talk about this because of the slippery slope that progressive Christianity is the lack of respect and understanding of the Word of God.
And the lack of just recognizing this as a true authority in my life.
It's funny you're talking about the lack of respect to the Bible and the lack of authority that the Bible has in your life, because we're going to get into it. I promise. I only have like 3 minutes of footage from them. So we are like halfway there. Over even.
They're up there just saying this stuff that's like, you're creating your own religion. But then technically you're like still identifying as like a branch of Christianity or a Christian.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. I keep forgetting how much I get frustrated with people like this, and this is my point, actually. This is what I wanted to talk about today. Paul and Morgan are getting upset that progressive Christianities are creating another sect of Christianity. Like they have forgotten that the Catholic Church used to be the only form of Christianity until, Martin Luther did his thing with the nail and the laws or whatever he did, and created the Protestant branch of Christianity. He seems to have forgotten that the propaganda behind the colonization of the U.S. was to give Protestants their own land to live. He seems to have forgotten that there are still extreme sects of Christianity, from the snake handlers to Quiverful movement to Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses. Are you calling them out for not taking the Bible seriously, or are you only calling out progressive Christians because they are actually willing to accept queer people and people with neo pronouns and more modern understandings of humanity? And we're going to get a little into what progressive Christians seem to believe about sex, by the way. And it's really not a good look for Paul and Morgan, I have to say.
Paul says, it's not our responsibility to judge those outside of the church.
I had to leave that in just because, despite that, it feels like their job is just to judge people who are outside of the church. I mean, look at the minutes that they spend making fun of someone who uses bug pronouns. Like, they use that as their cold open, and also they don't know if this person was in the church or not. Like, just gonna say, for people who are saying that you're not supposed to judge people outside the church, you're doing a lot of judging of people who are outside the church.
So this is 1 Thessalonians 4, 3 through 5 and 7. You should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality, that each of you should learn to control his own body in a way that is holy and honorable, not in passionate lust like the heathen, who do not know God. For God did not call us to be impure, but to live a holy life.
I really appreciate it when I don't have to read stuff out loud myself, because talking is not my forte. But I left this Bible passage in. They used both the 1 Corinthians and the Thessalonians passages to condemn sexual immorality, aka sex outside of marriage or queer sex for them. And I am using this to point out that the Bible is telling people to fucking control themselves. So people who claim that they are sexually assaulting or being inappropriate with people who aren't interested, and blaming it on the person who's not interested by wearing the short skirts, the loose, the tight pants, the boob enhancing, ball and scooping whatevers. The Bible says it's your own fault. Also, fun fact about the 1 Corinthians passage, if you go back and listen to it again, it talks about the man satisfying the wife. And we all know that it is a stereotype that Christian men don't know how to do shit for their wives. So, we can keep going now. I just needed to throw that dagger.
Paul says the solution to this, if you can't withhold having sex until you're married, is go ahead and get married, because it's sexual immorality.
Yeah, this is why I don't think they're going to come after Mormonism now that mainstream Mormonism isn't polyamorous, because I mean, Mormons are so hard on masturbation that they'll get married as soon as they're able to, just so that they can fuck. Doesn't matter if you are sexually compatible with your partner. They just want to fuck. They're desperate. And it goes back into my belief that Christianity really fucks up marriages, because they go into it with physical needs that have never been met, because they're so against masturbation and pornography and exploring and understanding yourself before marriage, that you go into it and you don't know what to do. So you end up with men who don't understand how to take care of their wives. You end up with wives who don't understand how to take care of themselves. And since wives are secondary to their husbands, they ignore 1 Corinthians and they don't satisfy their wives.
Our true selves is nothing good, you guys.
I hate that. I hate that so much, because that's the propaganda that they give you, to tell you that your shit, the only good shit in you, is through the Holy Spirit. And she says that, but I clipped it out because I didn't want to make this video too long with just their crap. So what's interesting is this is an interpretation. And just a few minutes ago, we were seeing clips where they are so against alternate interpretations of the Bible that they are shitting on progressive Christians for being like welcoming sinners and welcoming people who are not like them, for remembering that the Bible is like, you shouldn't be judging people, especially if they're outside the church, you know? But the next clip I have is a little out of context for everything that I have been talking about. I actually wanted to finish this video because I'm a bit concerned about Morgan. From what I understand, Paul has been a person who I just realized is using a copious amount of hair gel. That's like a helmet. But he was someone who grew up in the church and didn't even have his first kiss until he was married Morgan. Morgan, from their telling of it, was a bit more adventurous, but she converted to Christianity, or at least got more serious about the religion after she met Paul. So her talking about how you're nothing good outside of what God has given you is a very sincere belief from her. And this, I looked at some of their older videos, and I noticed that Morgan seems to be drugged. I'm not saying that she's being drugged. I'm saying that she seems to be taking something that sedates her, because I looked at more recent videos and I noticed in all of them she seemed to be talking a little slower and more slurred. But when I look at like 2-3 years in the past, she has a lot more energy, and has actually joked about that she is getting onto Paul for not having enough energy. And their relationship concerns me, because every video I've watched of them contains something akin to what I'm about to show.
And so suddenly both of these, the secular and the progressive Christianity, are looking very similar. What do they even call it? Like, I think a good amount of progressive Christians call themselves sex positive.
I'm sex positive. In marriage.
Wow, Morgan likes to scare us sometimes.
I know it doesn't seem like much, but it kind of builds on itself, where Paul seems to put down Morgan a lot, even during the build up to making fun of the bug self person. He looks concerned and then takes the microphone away. And I'm not saying their relationship is bad. I just feel bad watching them because Morgan ends up getting put down constantly, and I can't help but feel like it's partially because Paul is the man in the relationship. So because they're Christian, he believes that he has to be the one in charge, and also partially because despite Morgan being a born again Christian and supposedly having her sins wiped clean, he probably still remembers how she was when they first met, and on some level holds it against her, because that's also very typical of Christianity. It's very rare that you will have someone that comes from a bad past then be born again and be completely accepted by the people that knew them at the time. I'm speaking once again from experience, because I'm thinking once again of my former youth pastor who was a born again Christian, and he was from out of town, and he was completely accepted by the people in the city, but he still ended up holding his family at gunpoint. But I don't know, I find this entire video interesting, especially because they admit that they don't understand what progressive Christianity is about, and they read Demi Lovato's post of sex positivity. Demi Lovato has come out in the past that they are Christian, but it doesn't seem like they are a very conventional Christian. That's why they mention the whole Paul says not to judge people outside the church, despite the fact that they do that regularly. And despite the fact that they're supposed to be very accepting of people and forgiving so that they can be brought into Christianity. Well, hello, Dory. I am being visited by my cat. But it's also interesting because it doesn't take much to find what progressive Christianity believes. For instance, there is a website called progressivechristianity.org, and I found a very interesting post by Matthew Fox from March 2016, and it talks about what Fox thinks about sex. And since he's a progressive Christian that was able to post, he has a thing about articles of faith. He's created booklets for progressive Christians. I think this is a good resource to start with, because like Paul said, it's a spectrum, but we can at least find some truths in this. And I read through it. I'm not going to read through it here, but he actually talks about healthy sexuality occurs between two adult people committed to a lifelong, loving, and listening monogamous relationship, be that male or female, 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 or male, male. So they are accepting of queer relationships. And he puts the onus on the idea that healthy sex comes from two adult people, and that it is monogamous, and that they are equal. There's no exploitative, demeaning, or selfish gratification at another's expense. That unhealthy sex is ultimately destructive of people and relationships. It has nothing to do with if they're married or cohabiting, but it has everything to do with impoverished relationships, and that can happen within marriage and without. So as a really interesting focus, because he proceeds to go on to talk about how there's a lot of issues with pornography being seen by younger people, and how that is affecting little boys treating little girls. He's from the UK, by the way, because he talks about like the British Methodist Church, and talking about like all matters related to relationships in the contemporary world. And I don't know, I found it very interesting because he ended up focusing mostly on the fact that there's these problems of coming up that is surrounding pornography, and how women are treated in it, how kids are interpreting it, how kids are accessing pornography so young. He gives guidelines on how to help your child be knowledgeable of the world and be able to use the internet, but not put them in a cocoon and completely isolate them, which, may have helped a certain Duggar child if he hadn't been completely isolated, but who knows? I'm just saying. And then at the very end, he discusses how human sexuality is actually mentioned in the Bible a lot less than social justice, and how people can cherry pick these verses, but there's like maybe less than a tenth of the Old and New Testament. There's less than a tenth of the Old and New Testament that talks about human sexuality and sexual immorality, including the 2 verses that we heard from Paul and Morgan. But then he actually just lists so many verses, over 500 verses that are focusing on social justice. So that seems to be the focus of the progressive Christianity, that it is important for sex to happen between 2 consenting adults, that the relationship be healthy and balanced. And at the end of the day, they don't give a shit where you're doing it. It's more important for the relationship to be between 2 adults to be healthy and to protect children and people from the harmful, unhealthy relationships that can happen with sex and pornography, which I agree with. And there's also mention in this about the fact that pedophilia is wrong, and it's even more wrong that authority figures in the church have covered it up. And we didn't hear any of that shit from Paul and Morgan. They're just talking about get married as soon as possible, that sort of shit. And I'm going to leave it off here with Matthew Fox's Article of Faith 71. A church that is more preoccupied with sexual wrongs than with wrongs of justice is itself sick. Alright, well, that was a little all over the place. I apologize for that. My brain is slowly coming back into function because I took some of B's sleeping medication. They only take it as needed, where I'm supposed to take mine every day. So that helped me actually get some sleep. And it makes things a little bit better. Though now we have mushrooms growing out of the carpet, so there's that. I hope y'all have a good day. Stay hydrated. Don't let people like Paul and Morgan get you down. And just, be healthy and happy in any sort of relationship that you want, be it friends, romantic, sexual. And what's important is that you take care of yourself and you take care of the people around you. And so long as everyone's doing that, that's the ultimate good. I don't fully agree with progressive Christianity. At the end of the day, they're using a fundamentally flawed book as inspiration and trying to ignore all the bad shit. But I'd say that's no better or worse than fundamental Christians who also choose to cherry pick their own shit. So long as they're not hurting people, whatever. But Paul and Morgan very much are. So stay hydrated, stay healthy, like the video, subscribe, comment your thoughts on progressive Christianity. Let me know if you have any cool YouTube channels that discuss theism in an atheistic manner, especially if they have reaction videos to people like Girl Defined or Paul and Morgan, because it is genuinely very hard to actually listen to their video. Other than that, y'all have a good day, and I'll talk to y'all tomorrow.
I would almost say that at the root of this is selfishness.